So today I'm going to be answering the question of who is the scariest version of Jason, in my opinion. What's up guys, REAPSHOW here. Today I'm going to be ranking the overall scare factor of every version of Jason Voorhees through the entire Friday the 13th franchise, from the worst to the best. Now this ranking will mainly consist of the main versions of Jason in each film. Won't really have too many variations, won't really have too many kid versions of Jason, with one exception. And that's mainly just because that is the definitive version of Jason in that film. So without further ado, let's get into this here. Starting off at the very bottom of the barrel, number 12, Jason from the original Friday the 13th. Now, I love this version of Jason, but when you put him up against the Kane Hodder's, the Ted Whites, the Richard Brookers, the Derek Mears, it's gonna fall short, right? Love the design. Savini did an incredible job on just the makeup, the mongoloid look. I love it, right? At the end of the day, he's not in the film a whole lot, and it's really mainly just a dream sequence, right? But it is creepy. I love the scare at the end. I mean, it's classic Friday. But again, going up against, like I said, adult version of Jason, I can't put him higher than really any of them. The more I watch the original Friday, the more I appreciate it, honestly. And honestly, it kind of climbs up my rankings every time I rewatch the original. I just appreciate it more and more. As a kid, I wanted Jason, mainly. I was your typical Friday the 13th fan that just wanted Jason, right? As an adult, I still want to watch Jason, right? But at the same time, I really appreciate what the original did. But yeah, as it stands, kid version Jason's gonna be number 12. Moving on to number 11, we've got Sackhead Jason from Friday the 13th Part 2. Again, I love this version of Jason, but when I put him up against classic hockey mask Jason, he's not that scary to me. I love Sackhead Jason. Visually, I love the look, love the aesthetic. The unmasked look is really creepy, right? But he's smaller, he's bumbling, he's clumsy, and again, I think it works. It works for the film. I love Part 2. This is not a reflection of how I feel about really any of the films, but I just don't find his version of Jason, this version of Jason, to really be that scary. When you compare him to what Jason would ultimately become, I don't find it to be that scary, but in the same token, it is creepy. I do like it, but at the end of the day, it's going to be number 11 for me. Moving on to number 10, we got Ken Kersinger from Freddy vs. Jason. Now, I think the look is solid. I think that his version of Jason is a lot better than people give it credit for. A little bit too slow and stilted, but at the end of the day, I think he gets the job done. This is not a reflection of his performance. It's more or less the fact that this film kind of puts Jason in more of an anti-hero light, and that is not scary to me. When obviously he still kills people, obviously he's still a villain, but they put him in this light where he's rooted for against Freddy, and that's why he's where he is, because I just don't find him to be scary when you're kind of rooting for him. Obviously he has his moments that are terrifying, like when he gets up and he's in the van and he's freaking out and he's trying to rip through the chains or whatever they have kind of him bound in. When he does those unpredictable, quick, jerky movements, that is scary to me. But he doesn't do that a whole lot in the movie. Yeah, overall, I think it's a solid performance, but in terms of scare factor, it kind of falls short. Moving on to number 9, we got Kane Hodder from Jason X. This version of Jason is not my favorite version of Jason visually. I think Kane Hodder does an incredible job portraying him. He is incredibly menacing, especially when they're approaching him when he's in Crystal Lake Research Center and his eyes are just following that security guard. I think that's genuinely creepy. It's hard to say whether I like OG Jason in Jason X or Uber Jason. I kind of feel the same about both. I'm not that big on either, right? I think he's menacing and scary and intimidating, but just the film he's in is so goofy, and I understand having fun with Jason X. I get it. I just don't have fun with it. I'm one of the few that cannot get into that movie. Wish I could, wish I was part of that group, but I'm just not, right? But yeah, overall, Kane Hodder does a great job. But I just cannot get into Power Ranger Uber Jason. It's just not scary to me. His eyes are intimidating and scary. Everything else to me is not that scary, right? I think OG Jason's slightly scarier because it's more aligned with what I'm used to with Jason. But yeah, even just the OG look, I've said this before, but I feel like he's too normal looking, where you just see his whole full ear. He's got a lot more hair than any other version of Jason. Yeah, overall, it's got its aspects that are creepy and scary. Ultimately, yeah, it's going to be towards the bottom for me. Moving on to number 8, we've got Jason from Jason Goes to Hell. I like this version of Jason. Obviously, you get the bookend with him in the beginning, him in the end. He's kind of sprinkled throughout the film. I like bloated Jason. I didn't always like, first off, I didn't always like this film, and I also didn't always like this version of Jason, right? But it's grown on me. Just the amount of detail and just the effects. I just appreciate what went into the makeup and design of this version of Jason. He feels threatening, he feels scary, especially when he bursts through the floor and the original Jason comes back, and you just feel that dread of him coming back. That is freaky. Love the throwback in the beginning. Feels like an installment from the first 8. Still feels in line with that. Yes, this is a New Line film, but it's really the last Friday film that still feels aligned with the Paramount Friday films, if that makes any sense. Yeah, I really do find this version of Jason to be creepy and scary, even when it's not Kane Hodder and he's body jumping. I feel like it still feels like Jason. And yeah, like he really does have a looming scary presence throughout this entire film, to me at least. Moving on to number 7, we got Jason from A New Beginning. Now, he's in the beginning of the film, and then he's peppered throughout in hallucinations / dream sequences. I really feel like this version of Jason is the perfect marriage between final chapter and part 3. He feels more like Ted White, but he's shot in a way where it feels like Richard Brooker more. So I really like that it's kind of the perfect blend of the two. But yeah, he feels like a menacing presence. He feels like the original Jason from that original run of films, right? And I really do like the moments where, like when Tommy's looking in the mirror and Jason just standing behind him with an axe, that is scary, right? When he looks out the window and he sees Jason again with the axe, I think that's creepy as well. I like when he comes through the grave and he's going to kill Tommy and Tommy wakes up. There's a lot of moments when you get OG Jason and it is actually effective. And this is no slight to Roy Burns. I do like Roy Burns. Moving on to number 6, we got Derek Mears from the remake. Now, this is an intense, visceral performance. I love this version of Jason. The only reason he hasn't cracked the top 5 is I've never been that huge on the look. And it does kind of take it down for me. Now, Baghead Jason in this film is genuinely terrifying to me. Love Baghead Jason in this movie. I think that he's honestly scarier than OG Jason with the mask. Never been huge on the mask or the overall look of Jason. Again, this is no slight. I think that Derek Mears does an incredible job. It's just the look takes it down a notch for me, but that's not to say he doesn't terrify the hell out of me in this movie. I think that he's genuinely terrifying. He is kind of reminds me of Tyler Maine's performance in Rob Zombie's Halloween, right? I think that they both share a common thread. They got that intense, visceral nature where they're just gonna straight up sprint at you and that is terrifying. I mean, that opening of the remake is one of the best openings of the entire franchise, in my opinion. As for the rest of the film, that's up for debate, but the opening is incredible. And again, Baghead Jason has never looked better. It's in my top 6. I love this version of Jason, but there are a couple more ahead of it that I find to be scarier. Moving on to number 5, we got CJ Graham from Jason Lives. I love this version of Jason. I like Carpenter Jason. I like that he's got a full arsenal belt of just stuff, like a tactical belt. He has this like militaristic vibe to him. Yeah, I really like this version of Jason. I like when he's coming out of the grave and he's taking Tommy. That's absolutely terrifying. Yes, there's a comedic aspect to the film, but I wouldn't say that it completely makes up the entire tone. It's peppered throughout tastefully to where I wouldn't say this is a spoof. I feel like it's serious enough with a comedic edge, but I wouldn't say this is really a horror comedy. It's got comedic elements. Jason, to me, is genuinely intense and scary in this movie. Love this version of Jason, love the design, and I just love, again, how militaristic and how intense he is in this movie. Moving on to number 4, we've got Richard Brooker from Friday the 13th Part 3. Really love this version of Jason. I feel like he is the perfect marriage between Part 2 and Part 4. He's bigger, he's bulked up, he's more intense and intimidating, but he's got that kind of bumbling aspect that Part 2 had, right? I really think it's perfect because it transitions into what we get with Ted White, right? And I really think that that was crucial. To me, I like more intense, less bumbling, clumsy version of Jason. Now, that's not to say that's not scary and effective. But he's got that stalker quality to him that I really like, where he's just stalking in the barn. He's just watching everybody. He's just looming throughout the film. I think that that's actually really creepy. Richard Brooker does an incredible job. This is a lot of people's favorite version of Jason, and I wouldn't argue with that. I think that he does an incredible job. I love that version of Jason. And again, I think that it's the perfect blend between 2 and 4 in that trajectory. Moving on to number 3, we've got Jason from Jason Takes Manhattan. Kane Hodder does an incredible job. This is one of my favorite Kane Hodder performances. I love this version of Jason. He had one under his belt with New Blood, and yes, the design's not quite as rich with the bones and everything that you get in New Blood, but it's got a different dynamic. It's got the slimy quality to him. He's got like a ghost-like atmospheric quality where he's just looming everywhere. Really like that. I think that it works. He's intense. He's disgusting looking. Are there flaws with it? Yeah. I mean, you see his thumb, you see his pinky. There's moments where it's not perfect, right? His clothes magically grew back from the waters of Crystal Lake. Yeah, I mean, there's aspects to it that don't make sense. But when I'm looking at his presence, I find it to be genuinely scary. I really love this version of Jason. He feels so of the elements, like you just can't beat him in this movie. Yeah, love this version of Jason, but there's just a couple that are ahead of it. Moving on to number 2, we've got Jason from the New Blood. This is absolutely incredible. I love the design of Jason is so perfect to me. When he comes out of the lake and you just see his spine glistening in the moonlight, absolutely incredible. Love this design. I like the face design. I don't think he looks like a frog. I think it works. They take into account all the damage that he's taken on throughout all the films. Kane Hodder is so intense in this movie, and it just pains me that the MPAA just hacked this movie to shreds, because some of the kills are just so incredible if you look them up on YouTube, right? But they destroyed all that footage, so that will probably never see the light of day. I hate to say never, never say never, but it's a pretty good chance that we won't see that footage. But yeah, this version of Jason is intense as hell. I wish the kills kind of reflected how intense Kane Hodder is. I feel like his intensity makes up for the lackluster kills. I love the breathing that he... I know some people aren't as huge on the intense breathing that he does. I think it works really good. That's another thing I didn't mention for Takes Manhattan, where you see the, you know, because it's cold out, you see the fog coming through his mask when he's breathing. I think that that's great. But yeah, back to New Blood. Absolutely incredible performance as Jason. They film him in a way where he feels really towering and tall. This is one of my favorite versions of Jason. Love it, terrifying, but there's one ahead of it. On to number one, the scariest version of Jason, in my opinion, Ted White from the final chapter. This to me is not only the scariest version of Jason, it's my personal favorite version of Jason, and in my opinion, the best Friday the 13th film. Is this version of Jason is so perfect. He takes what Richard Brooker set up and he takes it up a notch. He's more intense, he's more in the shadows, but he feels so threatening. There's no messing around with him. Love the overall design. I mean, just this version of Jason is so intense and terrifying to me. When he bursts through the freaking door, I mean, it's like so effortless, but it looks great. Like visually, it looks incredible. When he throws the freaking hammer, when he's chasing Tommy, I mean, he is so intense in this movie. And I think that just the way the actors act off of him feels so visceral and real. And a lot of times there were moments that it really was, because he tried to keep his distance from the cast to kind of build that scare factor so that it would feel genuine and real. But yeah, Ted White knocks it out of the park. He is undefeated, the best Jason Voorhees, the scariest Jason Voorhees, and he's in the best Friday, in my opinion. So what do you guys think? Who do you think is the scariest version of Jason? Who's the least scariest version of Jason? Let me know in the comments. That's it for now. Stay tuned for more. Peace, guys.